Happy Valentine's Day, folks, and welcome to episode 220 of #AskGSM here today for February 14th, 2018. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. Valentine's Day, a very polarizing holiday, if you even really want to call it that. You either love Valentine's Day or you hate Valentine's Day. I feel like that's more polarizing, more John Cena of the holidays than probably any other holiday there is, including Christmas. And I know there's a lot of people who don't like Christmas, but there's even way more people who don't like Valentine's Day. But it is an excuse to go around and do your best brother love impersonation and tell people, I love you. Just go around and they'll probably think you're crazy, but any wrestling fan would appreciate that. But nonetheless, guys, as we get started here, if you want to send in any questions to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment near your question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question in the comments section down below on this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So let's get started here. First question comes from Mr. Marceau RJ here today via text. So very rarely do we get in questions from text. You can't send in questions by text, by the way. I'm not going to give you my number, but if you know me and you want to send in a question by text, you can, I guess. But anyway, his question was, why is the WWE obsessed with multi-women matches? I don't know. I've been asking myself the same question for the last year now. It really felt like it got out of control at WrestleMania last year, and then it only really spiraled even more out of control from that point forward, especially on SmackDown. Raw, it's an issue too. We've had like multi-women matches on Raw for the Raw Women's title, but way more on SmackDown. Because on SmackDown, we had multi-women matches at WrestleMania. We had one at Backlash that was like a 6-woman tag team match. We had one at Money in the Bank, the Money in the Bank ladder match, obviously. A fatal 5-way at Battleground with the women. We had a one-on-one match at SummerSlam, then at Hell in the Cell, but we had more at Survivor Series. We had a Lumberjill match, or Lumberjack, whatever they're calling it now, at Clash of Champions. They had the Women's Royal Rumble. They've had multiple, multi-women matches on SmackDown and on Raw. It's like, oh my God. It's like they're incapable of creating a compelling one-on-one feud. I think might be the answer to your question, RJ, is that they are not completely, but, it's not even that they're incapable. I'm not even going to say that they're just lazy, because we know they can. Say what you will about Charlotte and Sasha and the fact that, it lasted too long or the matches weren't that good, which I would argue with. I mean, the Hell in the Cell match was not great, but the other matches they had were pretty damn good. It's some of the best women's matches I've ever seen in WWE. But beyond that feud on Raw, they have yet to have a real compelling one-on-one feud with the women. I'm hoping that changes with Ronda. We can get multi-women matches. Not multi-women matches, but we can get multiple one-on-one singles matches with the women at WrestleMania this year. That is my hope. If we get like a mixed tag team match with Rousey and like The Rock or whoever versus The Authority, that's fine. But I want like Sasha and Bayley. I want Charlotte and Asuka one-on-one. I want all these different matches that have nothing to do with, 6-pack challenges and 5-pack challenges and 4-ways and triple threats. We have not had a one-on-one women's match at WrestleMania since like WrestleMania 23 or something ridiculous like that. And even that was like a lumberjack match, Lumberjill, whatever. The last real one-on-one singles match that we got at WrestleMania was Mickie James versus Trish Stratus at WrestleMania 22. We have not had one since, which blows my mind because that was a dozen fucking years ago. We have to have a real feud at WrestleMania that doesn't get everyone on the card. You don't need to get everyone on the card. I'll talk more about this. Someone else asked a question about this, and I'll address it later, because it pisses me off when they do this. And I know other people disagree. People have wrote in before saying, they need to have a multi-person battle royal, whatever. No, you don't. You don't. That's what the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal is for. You don't need to have 8-man ladder matches and 6-woman elimination matches at WrestleMania. Who the fuck cares? Just give me a real one-on-one women's match. That's why no one matters anymore. No one gives a shit about anyone except for Asuka for the most part, because it's all the same matches, not the same matches we get every week. They're not giving us the same matches every week. The issue is that they're just bundling up all the women in one match. Especially on SmackDown. Raw's doing a better job of that. We have like the Absolution stuff with Bliss and Mickey, and then you have Bayley and Sasha, and then you have Nia and Asuka. So they got a couple different feuds going on over there on Raw. I hope to God it doesn't culminate in another multi-women match for the belt in WrestleMania. We're fucking getting that on this pay-per-view coming up. We're getting that with the Chamber match. We got that with the Women's Rumble. We need a real one-on-one women's match of Mania. Now, if it's Alexa versus Nia, I don't care. But if it's a one-on-one match, then whatever. It's a step in the right direction. So I'm hoping that's the case. But we got to move past this, because that's why no one fucking matters in the women's division on either Raw or SmackDown. It's because we get all these fucking multi-women matches every single fucking week. And it's always the same shit. We need to give... That's why no one cares about the Riot Squad or Absolution or these people or those people. Because it's always the same matches. Every single week. With these women. Not maybe the same people involved. But it's always 6-woman or 8-woman or tag team matches. It's like... No one can get over. If you focus on everyone at once, nobody gets over. That's why I loved SmackDown's women's division when they first started up the second brand split. And we had multiple women feuds. We had Nikki and Carmella. You had Alexa and Becky. And then you had a few other stuff going on with Eva Marie for a little while. You had Naomi and Natalya. You had a few different feuds going on there. You don't really have that anymore on either brand, especially on SmackDown, where it feels like it's just lazy writing with the women every single week. We are AP450 from YouTube. Her first question was, outside of the Bullet Club and New Japan guys in Dalton Castle, which Ring of Honor guy would you want to see in WWE NXT? Easy. Jay Lethal. I've said that for years now. I think Jay Lethal would be a great fit in WWE. I believe they approached him about a deal. I know they were interested in him, like when he was at the peak of his popularity in Ring of Honor, when he was the reigning world champion and the TV champion in like 2015, 2016, around that time. And then that was, I mean, they've been, I'm sure they've been interested ever since, but I know Ring of Honor re-signed him to like a multi-year deal, I think at the end of 2016 or at the onset of 2017. So he might be there for at least another year or so. But to me, Jay Lethal, not only should he be in WWE, but he's really done it all in Ring of Honor. He's won the belt. I don't think he's won it twice, but he is the longest reigning Ring of Honor champion of all time. World champion of all... No, not the longest reigning, but one of the longest reigning world champions of all time. The longest reigning TV champion of all time. That's what it is. You know, he's won all these titles. He's been a heel. He's been a face. He's faced that guy. He's beat that guy. Lost to that guy. He's faced everybody. It's time for him to move on. So I would love to see Jay Lethal probably go to NXT first. There's very few people I would have skip over NXT to go straight to the main roster. Jay Lethal, though, I think would be perfect for NXT when that time comes. Your second question, if you could change one thing about your Mania weekend experience, what would it be and why? Largely nothing. I know I said this last week that WrestleMania weekend with Jason and everyone else who was a part of it was one of, if not the greatest weekend of my life. Just so much fun in Orlando for those few days. That said, there's nothing I would change about the shows that I went to or what I went to. The only thing, I mean, largely I would say change nothing. If I had to change anything, too, the one thing I couldn't really change, it was kind of unavoidable, but the first thing, the flights. The flights were fine. The flights themselves were fine. It was the fact that we got delayed in fucking Newark, the armpit of America, for like 5 hours on that Friday morning. I was so pissed, because we were supposed to get to Orlando at like noon. We didn't get there until like 6 o'clock. And then it took like an hour to get to the hotel. We get to have an Uber and a taxi and all this other shit. We were so tired, Jason and I. It was ridiculous. I was looking forward to getting there early, hanging out, maybe going by the pool. Couldn't do that. It was a nightmare for a few hours there. But, you know, whatever. It didn't ruin the weekend or anything. The second thing, I was going to say, I mean, it's not really anything I could change because I tried to do the best I could. But WrestleMania week for me is always just super, super, super busy. Not only for the stuff that I normally have to do with like articles and videos and stuff like that, but also because I left for Orlando, I had to do all my homework ahead of time. So because of that, I didn't really have any time to, work on the articles that I had to do over WrestleMania weekend, which I ended up doing. I wrote literally before we left both days, on Saturday and on Sunday. I had to do articles on both those days. This year, I probably won't sign up for articles on either day. It's kind of unavoidable, beyond doing my own reviews, which, I can control. But when I write for other websites, sometimes I have to write for a certain day. That was unavoidable. I mean, I probably should not have signed up for those days, but whatever, that was my own fault. Knowing I would be in Orlando for the weekend, for WrestleMania weekend, knowing I would be busy, but it was so busy going from one thing to the next. We'd get back at like 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd be hanging out all night, wake up super early. I'd bust out the articles one after another. It was pretty crazy there for a while. So I would probably, if I was ever to do that again, for example, if we go to WrestleMania weekend next year, reportedly if it's in New York or New Jersey, whatever, obviously I wouldn't fly because I'm close enough where we just drive. But if I do stay over for WrestleMania weekend in a hotel or something, I would either not sign up for any articles that weekend or just do them all ahead of time, because I don't really want to spend my weekend sitting in the hotel room writing if I don't have to. Joe M. from YouTube, his question was, what is Fandango / Johnny Curtis missing that's stopping him from being a major star in WWE? He has a great look. Sometimes that alone is enough for WWE to push you to the moon. He's really charismatic. In the ring, he can hit drop kicks and zaguris and top rope conhilos or whatever that is. Better than most cruiserweights can, despite being like 6'4". He also gives his absolute all into whatever WWE gives him, whether it's fashion files, ballroom dancing, or those weird Johnny Curtis backstage skits, if anyone remembers those. Yet despite all this, he's had to watch for nearly a decade as guys not as talented as him won multiple world titles when he hasn't even won a single title. I like Johnny Curtis. I like Fandango. I realize the guy's a good worker. I've never seen him as a major star. I mean, I could see him as a mid-card guy, but you're building him up as like the next big thing here. I never saw him, even in NXT before the Fandango stuff, as a future world champion. You know what the biggest issue was with Fandango? Not only the character, because the character was stupid. He made the most of it, yeah, but he was never going to get beyond a certain level. Everyone knew that. And the fact that his theme song was more over than him was also a major issue. But you know what the biggest issue that he ran into was? Management was probably never going to push him past a certain point. I think he won NXT that year. The season 4, whatever it was. He still amounted to nothing, but I'm pretty sure he still won NXT that year. The biggest issue that he had was not leaving. He was content with being a loser for so long, and they didn't let go of him. He's a lot like Zack Ryder, where he's happy to be employed, but it doesn't really seem like he wants to get above a certain level. And obviously everyone wants to be a world champion. I don't know the guy personally, but if he really wanted to be taken seriously, he would have left years ago. I look at that class of NXT Season 4, whatever it was. You had a few different people in that class, like a Brodus Clay, who, had some decent success as his name was Brodus Clay still. But, he had some decent success and never won a title, but he was still, fairly relevant on the main roster for a little while. Lucky Cannon, I don't think it was Lucky Cannon. Jacob Novak, who amounted to nothing, and a few other guys. But, you also in that class, you had a guy like Derek Bateman, who was like, I'm sick of this shit. I mean, obviously he didn't leave. He got cut. And if he stayed, he would have obviously amounted to nothing. He'd be in a similar spot that Curtis Fandango is right now. But he got cut. He took that and said, you know what? I'm going to shove it up this company's ass by going to TNA and making a name out of myself. And people like to shit on TNA, but TNA made a star out of Ethan Carter III. They made a star out of Derek Bateman, which I thought was impossible. But the guy was really, really good, and he honed his skills, he got in great shape, and he became a top star for that company. I mean, the definition of a top star, like drawing power and shit, is debatable. But he became one of their cornerstones for almost 5 years in TNA. So that being said, he's a guy that, now that he's back in NXT, he should be a big deal. I don't know if he'd be a future world champion. I'll talk about that a little later on. Someone else asked the question about that. But he could be, and it will be, a much bigger deal than he was before he got cut 5 years ago. Johnny Curtis, because they never let him go, has been stuck in a rut. He's never going to be anything. After the Fandango stuff and the Brazango shit and all this other stuff, it's entertaining, but like Santino, when you get molded into a comedy character, it's hard to escape that. So I don't think anything's going to change. So he'll never get beyond a certain level, but I think the biggest issue with him was that he wasn't cut. Because if he was cut, maybe he would have faded off into obscurity, like Alex Riley. Or maybe he would have gone to TNA, or gone to New Japan, or gone to Ring of Honor, honed his skills, become a much bigger star, and then come back a much bigger star. But unfortunately, that doesn't appear that it's ever going to happen at this point. His next question: can you rank these superstars' careers from least to most Hall of Fame worthy, and are they all Hall of Fame worthy in your opinion? So these superstars include Kofi Kingston, The Usos, Dolph Ziggler, Cesaro, Sheamus, and The Miz. That's a good question. Like the mid-carders of the late 2000s, early 2010s. Number one, I would put The Miz. I think out of all the people that you listed there, The Miz is easily the most Hall of Fame worthy. Former WWE champion, main event of WrestleMania, won the main event of WrestleMania, 8-time IC champion, something crazy like that, coming in close as the longest reigning IC champion of all time for consecutive days, which is unreal. Multi-time tag team champion, former US champion. The guy's done a lot in WWE. And he's only getting started, and the guy's just great. So, The Miz is easily the most Hall of Fame worthy out of all of them. I don't want to say the rest are debatable. The Usos have got to be Hall of Fame worthy. Easily the best tag team that WWE has had in the last 10 years. It's not really that bold of a thing to say, because they've been around for 8 years. They're like 5-time tag team champions. They've had a plethora of great matches with a plethora of tag teams. They've yet to compete on a WrestleMania on the main card, which is disappointing. But, that being said, they've reinvented themselves, a lot like The Miz, have been the masters of, reinventing themselves in recent years, especially in the last 2 years, and have created a whole new career for themselves. So the Usos have got to be Hall of Fame worthy as well. And it's easier for tag teams, because there's not a lot of Hall of Fame tag teams out there, from WWE anyway. Sheamus, I would put next. Former, like a 4-time world champion, first ever Irish-born WWE champion. He's had a lot of success for himself, multi-time tag team champion, US champion. Sheamus, I would put at 3. 4, Ziggler. Former world champion, multi-time IC champion, US champion, but I don't know. With Ziggler, it's like, tag team champion. The guy never really got above a certain level, so I don't know what he would be the equivalent to. I can't even say he's like the Billy Gunn of this era, because Billy Gunn, even he didn't get beyond a certain... even he didn't win the world title like Dolph Ziggler did for a month, but he still held the world title. I would put Ziggler on there. I wouldn't say he's a slam dunk for the Hall of Fame, but he'd be more Hall of Fame worthy than either Kingston or Cesaro. Now, Kingston, I'd put second to last. As a single star, he's won a lot of titles, but it's like, has he really made that big of an impact? I know Coco Beware's in the Hall of Fame, so that really opens the doors for anybody. But it's like, on his own, not really. If they inducted the New Day together, then definitely. The New Day, I would say, is a Hall of Fame worthy group down the road. For as long as they've been together, for the tag titles they've held, for how long they've held those tag titles for, in 2016 and 2015 as well, they would definitely have to be up there. As a Hall of Fame worthy group. Kingston on his own, though, it's debatable. Cesaro, I would say no. And I like Cesaro probably more than anyone else in that list except for The Miz. But it's like, he's a glorified mid-carder. Why would you put Cesaro in? I know the Godfather's in the Hall of Fame, the Rikishi's in the Hall of Fame, but it's like, I don't know. I love Cesaro, but other than winning the first ever Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania 30, what has he really done that's made like a huge impact? And I love the guy. Multi-time tag team champion, all this other stuff, but it's like, that's a stretch. Unless he ever breaks out. Currently, though, his career in WWE for the 6 years he's been here, I would not say is Hall of Fame worthy, on his own anyway. Next question. Which of these feud do you think would be a better WrestleMania main event feud? Babyface AJ Styles versus heel John Cena, or babyface Chris Jericho versus heel CM Punk. That's good. Either one would be sweet. We already got Jericho and Punk as a WrestleMania main event, even though it didn't go on last, with the roles reversed. I do remember a match those two had on Raw like 5 years ago, with Punk as the heel and Jericho as the babyface. And I remember it being a lot better than their WrestleMania match, because I felt like those were the roles that suited them best. And the feud they had in 2012 was really, really good, but it was by no means like one of the greatest feuds I've ever seen. So AJ and Cena, though, I think would be phenomenal, for lack of a better term. The matches they had were way better than any match than Jericho and Punk ever had, which were very good and sometimes great, but the Styles Cena matches were unbelievable. Some of the best matches of Cena's career. And that was with Cena as the babyface. And AJ's a natural babyface. You turn Cena heel, that could be very interesting. So I would totally do that one way, way over Jericho and Punk. Captain Sunshine from YouTube. If Elias finishes a song with absolutely no interruptions, does the world end? I would say yes. Does Absolution have a goal? I'd ask if the Riot Squad has one, but I know they won't until Absolution does. You know, Absolution was doing well for a little while, but then Paige got hurt / retired, and then the wheels just fell off. Because I know she's managing them now, and that's great. I'm happy Paige is still around, but it's like, it seemed like the goal was to get the Raw Women's title on Paige. Now we'll never know because she's retired. I don't think they were going in that direction anyway. I would take Paige over Alexa or Paige over Asuka versus, over Paige or Bliss and Nia Jax as a WrestleMania match for that Raw Women's title. But nonetheless, currently no, maybe to win the Raw Women's title, but they seem to be building momentum and getting over very well in the beginning. And they're still winning matches here and there, but it's like without Paige wrestling, and without Paige going for the Raw Women's title, do they really serve a purpose? Not really. It honestly wouldn't surprise me if they broke them up at some point down the road or in the not-so-distant future, maybe after WrestleMania. They can keep Paige with Sonya. I would break off Mandy, and I wrote about this in an article for Hidden Remote a couple days ago. I would break off Mandy with Goldust, which was teased in the Mixed Match Challenge. I feel like that on paper is a perfect pairing. They have a lot of great chemistry, too. I think Mandy can learn a lot more from working with Goldust in the ring than Paige, who can no longer wrestle. But that's what I would do currently. I would say they have no goal except for winning the Raw Women's title at Elimination Chamber. Brandon A. from YouTube. I watch WWE, New Japan, and occasionally Lucha Underground. I don't watch Ring of Honor or Impact Wrestling, so I can't answer this next question. Who is the John Cena / Hiroshi Tanahashi / Prince Puma of those two companies? The catch is that they still must be employed by the company, although I know Ricochet is in WWE now. If it's not Ricochet or Prince Puma for Lucha, I would say that he is the John Cena of Lucha, but without Prince Puma there, it's got to be Pentagon Jr., who is now their current champion. But yeah, I would if it's not Puma, it's got to be Pentagon. For Ring of Honor and Impact, Ring of Honor, no one is ever there long enough for them to be like the John Cena of that promotion, because if it's like a Roderick Strong, they leave. If it's an Adam Cole, they leave. A Kyle O'Reilly, they leave. They all go to WWE. So for Ring of Honor, looking at the current roster, I'll pull up a name I mentioned earlier, Jay Lethal. I guess you could say Christopher Daniels, maybe. Maybe Daniels. I could see a case being made for Daniels because he's pretty much been there since day one. He's left on and off, but he's been there for the most part. He is a former world champion as of last year. So I would say Christopher Daniels, if not Jay Lethal. Who I feel like Lethal is more of a primetime player in that company now than Daniels is or ever really was. For TNA, there's like nobody. I mean, you look at the current roster, there's no one there that's been there long enough. James Storm, gone. AJ Styles obviously would have been it, but he's gone. EC3, or even Bobby Lashley, would have been the ones that I would have said, oh, they're like the biggest star. They're like the face of Impact. But they left too. They're now both gone as well in WWE. Lashley is not confirmed to be going to WWE, but it's pretty likely. And EC3 is already there. Without them, is it Abyss? Like, that's an awful thing to say because Abyss is not that good. He has not been a main event player in that company in years, but he has been there since day one. He's more of a franchise player than probably anyone else in the roster. If you're going by top guys, then Austin Aries, who's now their world champion. But if it's not Austin Aries, and you want to go with someone who's been the face of Impact, it's probably going to be Abyss, and that's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. His next question, similar to last week's WrestleMania questions, rank these rebooked WrestleMania cards. WrestleMania 25, with this card, you leave the card the same, but make Orton and Triple H no holds barred in the middle of the show. Matt and Jeff are the opener. The Money in the Bank ladder match, second to last. And Taker versus Shawn is last. WrestleMania 29, give CM Punk the main event title match versus Triple H. The Rock versus Brock. And John Cena versus The Undertaker. And then finally, WrestleMania 32, no triple threat at Fastlane. Instead, have the main event be a fatal four-way between Roman, Triple H, Dean Ambrose, and Brock Lesnar, with Ambrose winning. KO versus Sammy for the IC title. Make the ladder match for the US title, and drop Owens and Zayn, obviously, and add in Kalisto and Ryback. And give AJ versus Jericho the no-holds-barred street fight stipulation. Those all sound like much better shows. Way better shows. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but the one that I would see above all the others has got to be WrestleMania 29, which obviously in real time would never be the case. But with that card that you presented there, putting in Cena and Taker, Punk and H, with Punk as the main event, first of all, Punk would have to win. So I guess you're saying that Punk does not drop the belt. You're saying the title match. So I would assume Punk does not drop the belt to Rock at the Royal Rumble, and he's champion the whole time. He would have to win because he lost to Triple H in 2011. So I guess he would stay WWE champion for a little bit longer. And then Rock and Brock. I don't know how good the match would have been, but it would have been better than doing Rock and Cena again. So WrestleMania 29 all the way. For the second one, I'd be remiss if I did not put WrestleMania 25 in that spot. Simply for Taker and Shawn going on last. And the card itself is not that great. The three-way world title match, which you kept on the card, was not that good. And you still have the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal and Rey Mysterio versus JBL lasting 90 seconds, whatever the fuck it was. 18 seconds, whatever. But still, I mean, putting that on last is a biggie. So I'd put that second. WrestleMania 32, the card sounds a lot better with that four-way main event for the title and Owens and Zayn for the IC title. The ladder match, I don't care about at all. For the US title, who cares? AJ and Jericho is good no matter what, so giving it a no DQ stipulation, I mean, it is good, but it doesn't really make them that much of a difference. You still have Taker and Shane in a Hell in a Cell match. You forgot to mention that. And that match sucked. So I'm going to go with WrestleMania 29 first, WrestleMania 25 second, and then WrestleMania 32 third. His next question. Roman Reigns has been pushed as the biggest star in the company for almost 4 years and has held the title for a combined number of days that equate to less than 4 months. Since Roman will inevitably win the title at WrestleMania, how long should he have it for, and who should he drop it to? I am thinking let him have a long run with it and just get it over with. You know, dude, I wish they can give him a long reign to quote-unquote get it over with, but you know that won't be the case. The guy is the new John Cena. It doesn't matter if you give Roman Reigns a long title run. He's going to win it back anyway. So I think you're thinking that maybe, if they give him like a year-long title run, he won't hold the championship after that, or they won't, push him as the top guy. It doesn't matter how long he holds the belt for. He's going to be champion multiple times over the next number of years. It's just going to happen. So it doesn't matter whether he has a long run or not. It doesn't really matter to me, as long as he has, good feuds and good matches and he's booked properly, which is yet to happen, obviously. But then again, I mean, the feud that he had, the run that he had after WrestleMania 32, the WrestleMania 32 main event sucked with Triple H. It just really was not that good. But after that, for the 2 or 3 months he held the belt after that, in the feud with AJ Styles and then with Rollins, was really, really good. So it's not like he's a bad champion. People are just sick of seeing him in the main event world title picture, which hasn't happened in like a year and a half, but whatever. I mean, he's been in the picture before for the world title, but he hasn't held it in like a year and a half. Anyway, so how long should he hold it for, and who should he drop it to? I don't know. Usually it's like WrestleMania to SummerSlam. It's a pretty typical pattern. It's hard to say. Are they doing away with the brand split? I would fucking hope not. I would be pissed. But it depends who goes to Raw. You can't really say. Like, is AJ Styles going to Raw after the Superstar shakeup? I would hope not. Who will they have on Raw? I would put Roman in a feud with Ambrose. A heel Ambrose coming out of WrestleMania if Ambrose is cleared by that point. There's a couple different people you could put against Roman. Him and Braun we've seen before. I think it's too soon for that, but you could always drop it to Braun. I know, and we've seen it many, many times, but at least Braun would finally become a world champion if he doesn't go to SmackDown. So Braun could work. I mean, again, I can't say. I really can't say. It depends if Brock sticks around. Do you do a rematch? Does he drop it to Bobby Lashley if Bobby comes in? Does Nakamura go to Raw and win it? Like, I think Nakamura should stay on SmackDown too. But there's so many things to consider though, so I can't even begin to tell you. Andre G from Facebook. Do you think the UK Championship is like another top title in NXT, next to the NXT Championship? If so, should it remain that way or not? I mean, technically, yeah, it's like their mid-card belt. And now with people like Johnny Gargano and now Roderick Strong going after the title, it is essentially their mid-card title. I wish it had more of a presence on the program than it currently does. It's not on the show. It's not on the show all that much. But if it was, it would be like a second-tier title. And NXT really needs that now. Now more than ever, with as stacked of a roster as they have, they need some sort of a mid-card championship. The UK title can be just that. And I think it should remain that way. They could always rebrand it, so it's not the UK Championship. I love the design, but does it really make much sense if a guy like Roderick Strong won it and he was the UK champion? Not really. I've seen people, I know the Sala Monster talked about calling it like the dream title. I love that idea. Or something along those lines, like in honor of Dusty Rhodes. Something along those lines would be cool. I'm glad they have the belt, and it's a fixture in NXT, but it needs to have more of a presence on the show than it currently does. I don't want to see it show up every 2 months. It really should be more of a regular second-tier title in NXT. His second question, is it time for Randy Orton to hang it up, or could he bring a new side to him that we have never seen before? It's really hard for Orton to evolve when we've really kind of seen it all from him. He shouldn't hang it up. The guy he still has it. He could still have great matches, and he's by no means slowing down. He's not as interesting as he once was, but turning the guy heel would do wonders. So they should do that. But yeah, I think it's, regardless of what happens, having him hang it up at this point would be premature. Deshaun K from Facebook. What will be your pros and cons of having all the women compete on one brand? I'm not a fan of that idea. I know it's been tossed around before, like when the brand split was first brought back, of having one show for the women, or have the women go between both shows. I know the women's rosters aren't huge right now, but they would be overshadowed in 5 minutes. Like people like, I know Asuka would probably do well. The 4 Horsewomen, the Riot Squad, they're not doing well on one brand. You combine the two women, the two women's rosters into one brand, you would never see the women again. You would never see them on the show. The last thing we need is another show. We already had 205 Live. We have Mixed Match Challenge and NXT. You don't need a show just for the women. You really don't. I love the Mae Young Classic, but I think putting all the women on one show would be a disaster. I know we have cruiserweights that do that, but we have way less cruiserweights than we do women if you combine the two women's rosters. You would never see a woman like, I don't know, Mandy Rose get a push with one women's roster if they were to combine them. So I do not like that idea personally. I know it would be like more focused on the women, and they would get more time for their matches. That's a pro. The con is that there's a lot of women that would be overshadowed, which is why I hate the idea of doing the dual. I don't know if anyone asked about this, the dual brand thing. I'll talk more about it tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio, but it's like, I don't know. I mean, I like the fact that we'd hopefully get less pay-per-views, but I feel like we'd see the same people on the pay-per-views. And you already kind of have that with the singular pay-per-views, with, the exclusive events for each brand, but it's like, I don't know. Unless they make it 4 hours, which they should also not do. I'm not a fan of that either. But anyway, second question. Who should win the women's Money in the Bank ladder match this year? Again, a lot like with Brandon's question in regards to Roman Reigns and who should dethrone him as Universal Champion. We're thinking way too far in advance here. Because I'm not sure who's going where. And I mean, it really doesn't matter if they make... I think it is a dual brand show this year, Money in the Bank. And they can have women from both Raw and SmackDown go for it. I know I saw someone suggest Peyton Royce, if they're on the main roster by that point, which would be pretty sweet. And they can kind of share it between her and Billie Kay. Kind of do what Lay Cool did a couple years ago, but better. Peyton Royce would be cool. If not her, going off the current women's rosters. Ember Moon would also be sweet if she was up by that point. I don't know if she will be, but it would be cool if she was. I'm trying to think of the women on both shows and who could benefit from the briefcase. I mean, I guess you could always give it to someone like a Bayley or a Sasha, but I don't know. Been there, done that. Becky would be cool, too, because she hasn't been in the title picture largely for the last year. So giving her the briefcase, I'll say Becky Lynch. But because I can't really think of anyone else. Unless it's like a Mandy Rose, who would also be pretty cool, is Miss Money in the Bank, then I'm going to go with Becky Lynch. Because she's a former champion, but she's also not shoved down our throats as much as Bayley and Banks have been recently and over the last year and a half or so. Deshaun's third question here. Well, Aleister Black will certainly beat Andrade Cien Almas at TakeOver New Orleans for the NXT Championship. Do you expect Aleister Black to lose the NXT title at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn this year? And who would you have dethrone him? Velveteen Dream, Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, or Ricochet? You forgot EC3. I don't know if EC3 should be the one to beat him, but hey, you know what? Drew McIntyre came in WrestleMania weekend and won the belt in a matter of months, so you never know. Ricochet would be cool. I don't know if he needs the title, but Ricochet would be pretty sweet. Ciampa, I mean, any one of those people would be fine. I heard Gargano is probably main roster bound after WrestleMania, so probably not Gargano. Adam Cole would be awesome. The only issue with that is that we've already seen Black beat him twice. So I don't know if you go back to that at Brooklyn. I'll say so. I think Adam Cole, I would put the belt on him, but that's just me. Velveteen Dream would also be awesome too, but I feel like he's a guy that's not quite at NXT Championship level yet, that level of the NXT title. So I'd go with Adam Cole, but really anyone that you mentioned I would not be upset with, which is what is great about NXT. At E13A from Twitter, what do you mean by give up? So I put out a tweet yesterday when I said that if they got rid of the brand split altogether, if the dual pay-per-views, brand pay-per-views, whatever, that whole shit, whatever, I'm not totally in favor of it because I think it does have a lot of cons there, but it's not a huge deal. If they got rid of the brand split altogether, I said, after I've waited so long for them to bring it back, and I think it does a lot more good than it does bad, I give up. That's what I said yesterday. And, I mean, by this point, with a lot of the stuff the company does, I've lost faith in their creative direction on the whole between Raw and SmackDown. Not so much with NXT or 205 Live. I feel like now that 205 Live is under the authority, no pun intended, under the control of Triple H, it's a lot better off than it was before, needless to say. But getting rid of the brand split, in my opinion, would be just dumb. After they've only had it for 2 years, I feel like with so many people on these rosters, and I know there was a concern initially about splitting the rosters to begin with when we didn't really have that large of a depth pool, and putting people on 2 different shows would be, disastrous. I think it worked out pretty well. SmackDown was amazing for a while there. Raw sucked, but they picked up the pace and they're doing a lot better. SmackDown could also use some work, but they could fix that. You don't need that to get rid of the brand split to fix SmackDown. If anything, that would kill SmackDown. What happened to SmackDown 5-6 years ago when they got rid of the brand split? It became nothing, and no one gave a shit. It was meaningless for years anyway, but that was really the final nail in the coffin of SmackDown for a long time there. So that's what I mean by give up. I'm not going to stop watching wrestling. I would never say that because I probably never will. I don't expect to anyway. So that being said, I would just kind of be pissed, very pissed, if they ever got rid of it anytime soon anyway, because I think it's way, way too soon to be going down that route of getting rid of the brand split. This company does not know what the fuck they want, but I think a brand split has created way more stars for this company than they would have without it, which is why I would keep it. At PowerSlam50 from Twitter, Do you think WWE will use EC3 the right way and make him a champion? I could see him being a champion in NXT. On the main roster, it's iffy. You never know the main roster. They could fuck up the brightest superstar with the biggest potential. You never know the Raw and SmackDown these days. That being said, I think NXT will use him the right way. The guy's a great talent. He's good in the ring, a lot better on the mic, and he's got a good character. So, I don't know where he's been. I mean, he showed up at TakeOver Philly and TakeOver Philadelphia, and we haven't seen him since. I don't even know if he was at that last set of tapings. I know he was signed officially, I believe. So it's not like a Bobby Roode situation where we won't see him for a little while because he's not signed yet. I'm pretty sure he's signed, so I don't know where he is and why they're not talking about him more. So whatever, but hopefully we see him soon. At Humir 0014 from Twitter, do you think NXT booking and storylines are better than the main roster since the stories and moments aren't rushed to boost television ratings? I feel like a feud like Velveteen Dream versus Aleister Black could have been a failure on the main roster. Absolutely, like that's not even a question. Is NXT booking and storylines better than the main roster? That's all you had to say, then yes. Like that's not even a question. If they took the same feud and did it on the main roster and did it the same way, and it would have gone over huge. But if you give the main roster Dream and Black and ask them to do a similar, ask them to do the feud, but not the same way NXT did it, it would have failed. And no one would have cared. But yeah, it's not even the fact that it's not the NXT, the fact that it's taped in advance and all that other shit that helps them, and they don't really have to deal with injuries and stuff like that more often than not. Not only that, but it's like, I don't know, the main roster, they do rush a lot of things. They never really see things through more often than not, which is the biggest issue with Raw and SmackDown. A lot of things that don't make sense. More so SmackDown than Raw nowadays. Raw's been pretty bearable for the last, I would say, a few months, if not the last month or so. But beyond that, it's like, yeah, they're worrying about television ratings. Oh, this isn't working. We got to rush it, to give people the satisfaction of the payoff. It's like, no, see things through, which is what NXT does to a T. And yeah, they don't have to worry about TV ratings, so it's different, and injuries and stuff like that. And they don't have to, adhere to any sponsors and shit like that. Whereas with Raw and SmackDown, they do. But just the overall writing, especially of SmackDown, is lazy. It is in such a rut right now. And I don't know, and it's not like it doesn't have to be that way. Because SmackDown, they did the NXT booking, like with long-term storytelling and shit, to a T early on in the second brand split in 2016. Then they fell off a fucking cliff going into 2017 and has yet to recover. So that's the issue with the main roster. They are capable of doing booking similar to NXT. It's just that they don't want to, or they, I know they have other things to worry about, but it's worked before for SmackDown, so what's changing that now? I mean, why not go back to that? I think it's the writers, honestly. I mean, I know the writers aren't all to blame, but it's like, I think they changed the writers for SmackDown coming out of WrestleMania last year. That was where they hit a wall, because the writers, whoever was writing SmackDown, I think it was the former head writer of NXT, Ryan Ward, he was writing SmackDown for a little while in late 2016, early 2017, and it was great. It was awesome. And now, since they changed writers, it's been just complete shit. No one cares anymore. At the Carter D from Twitter, so we're getting a Fatal 5-Way, probably a triple threat at Fastlane, a seven-man chamber match, probably going to get lots of multi-man matches at WrestleMania. What's your take with WWE's fascination with cramming everyone on the card? So, kind of goes along with RJ's question with the multi-women matches, but this can go with the women, the men, it doesn't matter. I fucking hate that they do this. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I know there's some of you that will disagree with me and say that you need to get everyone on the card, it's WrestleMania. I could not disagree more with that. That was never the case years ago. Yeah, you would get the Grand Battle Royal with all the fucking losers in it. It would be on the pre-show. You would never even see it unless you got the WrestleMania DVD. Beyond that, they would very rarely do matches like that on the main WrestleMania card just to get everyone on the card. Yeah, they had Money in the Bank and stuff like that, which is fine. Beyond that, though, you don't need every women's match to feature 10 women and all this other garbage. 4 tag teams. It's like, not everyone needs to make the card. The card should feature the best of the best and what makes sense. People that It's not always going to work out this way, where the people that have busted their ass the most over the last year will make the card. Goldberg was barely around before he made the card, so obviously that's an exception there. But, for last year's WrestleMania, and he's also an icon too, so it's a bit different. And there are double standards in there and stuff like that, but it's like, there's certain people that just do not need to be at WrestleMania. I love Mickie James, but why would she need to be at WrestleMania? She has done nothing recently. Same thing with Natalya. She does not need to be wrestling on the main card at WrestleMania. They need one-on-one matches, real feuds, to make us care about these cards. Not fucking cards with all these tag teams and all this other shit. And it might be a spectacle. Like, I know the Hardys coming back last year and winning the Raw Tag Team titles in that match was a spectacle. The feud, though, leading up to that match was terrible between the Club and the Bar and Enzo and Cass. Who fucking cared about that shit before the Hardys came back? Nobody. The match was great. The feud sucked. The build to it was terrible. Same thing with the multi-man ladder matches for the IC title in recent years. They had one at 31 and 32. No one cared about the build because it was all these losers thrown into one match with maybe one or two people that mattered. And that was it. So I hate when they do that because it's just not necessary. I hate the fascination with the multi-man matches at WrestleMania and all these other shows. You do not need to get everyone on the card. That's what the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal is for. And you can do a women's Battle Royal too if you wanted to on the pre-show. Beyond that, though, I really hope, though I'm not optimistic, that WrestleMania this year will feature more standard matches. And you can throw in a little gimmick here, here and there, but largely it should be singles matches and tag team matches, none of this multi-man shit, unless it's necessary. Like for a world title, to make the match more interesting, I get that, but you don't need 10-man ladder matches for the IC or US title. I know we're going in that direction, unfortunately. It's not necessary, though. Anyway, next question from at Jeremy8911. Am I the only one that feels that the Cruiserweight tournament is pretty much like the Cruiserweight Classic, too? It is, really. I mean, now that Triple H is in charge, it seems like, reportedly, and he's kind of handling it the same way that he did the CWC back in 2016. It feels a lot like the CWC, too, with the people they're involving, bringing in outside talent from NXT and the UK tournament and stuff like that. And then also the booking of it, and it's all about the action and building up people with the video packages and stuff like that. Yeah, it really does feel like the CWC 2.0, and that's why it's working. What a concept. His second question, thoughts on Buddy Murphy being a part of 205 Live and Gulak looking like he's going back to his old character. For Buddy Murphy, big fan of him going to 205 Live. The guy was going nowhere on NXT. He has not even been on NXT TV in close to a year, I'm pretty sure. And he's good, too. I don't really give a shit about Wesley Blake, but Buddy Murphy I thought was always really good from what we've seen from him, and I think he's had untapped potential. He's not going to be a future world champion or any shit like that, but the guy is good, and I'm glad he's been given a chance to shine in the Cruiserweight tourney. I don't know if he's going to win. He should, but it would be cool to see him on 205 Live. He wasn't going anywhere in NXT. You might as well put him on 205 Live if he made the weight limit, and apparently he did. Good to see Alexa Bliss's boyfriend or fiance, whatever, not getting cut for the company, as had been teased on Total Divas recently. So I'm glad. I'm very happy to see him on 205 Live. And the video package they did for him, too, was also very well done. For Gulak, I thought that was great. I love the PowerPoint stuff, and he should maintain that to an extent, because I think that's what helped him get over to an extent in recent months. But what we saw on Tuesday was great. The aggressive side of him beating the shit out of Tony Nese was awesome. That was fucking great. So if he can maintain that, I don't care if he dishes the PowerPoint shit, because that was awesome if he could do that. Because when you say the old Drew Gulak, I think of the Drew Gulak they brought in for the CWC, for the early days of the Cruiserweight division, that no one gave a shit about. He was boring as all hell, fucking vanilla as an ice cream bar. But since the PowerPoint stuff and Vinnie Mac, he had a lot of flaws at 205 Live, but he made something of a star out of Drew Gulak. So I'm hoping that if they're ditching that, they go all the way with this aggressive Drew Gulak character, because if they don't, he'll end up right back where he was before in being a jobber that no one cares about. At Brad Berdar from Twitter, will Buddy Murphy's victory, at least it better be a victory, mark a permanent stay on 205 Live for him? And what did you think of the video package they gave him? I already talked about this a minute ago, but yeah, no, I love the video package. I thought it was great. I love the fact that he said, he's been working hard to get in shape, and they showed the weight, him cutting weight and stuff like that, and how he wasn't really doing anything on NXT, and he got, how he lost the NXT Tag Team titles a few years ago, and he hasn't been the same since, and all this other stuff. I loved it. I thought it was really, really good, and I do hope, even if he loses, and he should win, it's fucking Arya Daivari that he's facing here, people, but even if he loses, he should be a permanent fixture on 205 Live. NXT is stacked. He hasn't been on TV in a year. They're not going to use him there anyway. Just put him on 205 Live. I don't see why not. So I hope it is a permanent stay for Buddy Murphy on 205 Live, and I love the video package. His second question, if Enzo Amore is found guilty of the rape charges he faces when Big Cass returns, will the WWE at all acknowledge his previous relationship with Enzo? Why would they? I mean, even if he's not found guilty, why would they bring him up? They don't even really need to, because they already broke him up. It's not like they were in a tag team and then then Cass got hurt and he's coming back on his own. It's like they already broke up. They pretty much finished up the feud when he left. I could see even if Enzo's not found guilty and they can bring him up if they want to. I can see Cass like burying him in a promo the same way that Enzo buried him in a promo on Twitter and also on TV a few times. And on the Straight to the Source show with Corey Graves and Enzo a few months ago. I could see them doing something similar to that, but beyond that, you don't need to bring him up. Cass already broke up from him. He's doing his own thing. I don't care about Cass as a single star, but it doesn't matter. You don't need to have him. It's not imperative that he brings up Enzo, because they were already broken up before he left anyway. His next question, he's got two final questions here, second to last one. Even though no one believes he has a hope in hell of winning the Chamber, since he is entering last, do you think Elias needs to score at least one elimination in the match to help elevate him? Well, I was thinking about that. I mean, first of all, if he's the first one out, he's in the match at all, which is better than nothing, so that's good. But does he need an elimination? I don't think he needs one. It'd be cool. But who's he going to pin, though? Obviously not Roman Reigns, the ultimate winner. Reigns wins LOL. He's not pinning Braun. He's not pinning Cena. I know he did a few weeks ago, but he's not eliminating John Cena from the Elimination Chamber. Let's be real, people. Cena will probably be the one to eliminate him to get back for, him pinning Cena recently on Raw. So he's not pinning any of those three. That just leaves Rollins, Balor, and Miz. I don't see him pinning Miz. Miz and Braun, I would assume we're going to do something together. So I don't think he's going to pin Miz. Rollins he's not going to kick off. He's not going to kick off a feud with either one of those guys. I don't think. He's already faced Balor before. Him and Rollins does nothing for me. So I could see him pinning Rollins, but like why? And he'll probably get beat the next night on Raw by Rollins anyway. So him pinning Balor would be cool, but I feel like Balor needs a good showing here. Elias doesn't really need a strong showing. He's fine no matter what. Balor, they need to really focus on here. He's in the match. He doesn't need to win at all, but he needs to do well. And I assume whoever Elias beats or pins will be the first one gone. And it should not be Balor. So if anyone, maybe Balor or Rollins. I don't see it being Miz or any of the others. But even if he doesn't score any eliminations, Elias that is, he'll be just fine. The fact that he's in the match at all is great. And lastly, and I think he'll get over, by the way, I think he'll get over way more than by just performing in the fucking chamber than he would even eliminating anyone, in my opinion. And finally, also from Brad, while I'm all for a career revival of sorts for Jack Gallagher, if that's what they're going for after his talk with Drake Maverick, as he has been criminally underused since turning heel, do you think it would be a huge mistake to have it come at the expense of the most underrated competitor in the division, in my opinion, in Mustafa Ali next week? I know the guy's really underrated, Ali. They're both underrated. Gallagher's great. I know Gallagher's going back to his old tights or new tights or whatever, and that's great. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to win, though. Just because he had that talk with Drake Maverick doesn't really mean anything. So he doesn't need the win. If Ali goes on, I think he should too. I don't know what the brackets are looking like, but they have teased, Alexander and Ali. They had a match a few weeks ago, but they should go back to that with Alexander and Ali facing off. And Alexander would have to win, so maybe not. It doesn't really matter. If Ali's knocked out in the first round, hey, you know what? So was Hideo Itami. So who cares? We know Ali's not winning the whole thing anyway. So does it really matter? Not really. And he's not losing to a scrub either. It's Jack Gallagher. So it doesn't really matter. I think Gallagher's probably going to win. Should he win? It's arguable. I would not be pissed if Ali lost, though, because Gallagher's good too. And they're both underutilized. They're both underused. And they have been for many months now. But neither one of them is winning, so it doesn't really matter much anyway. So anyway, guys, that is episode 220, the Valentine's Day edition of #AskGSM here today. If you want to send in a question for a future episode, be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question in the comment section down below in this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, enjoy the rest of your Valentine's Day, whether you love it, hate it, go watch some Brother Love videos. Maybe rewatch The Rock's Return to Raw from 7 years ago today. Do not ask me how I remember that. I just do. And we'll be back right here next Wednesday, guys, with an all-new episode of #AskGSM. Until then, folks, have an awesome rest of your week. Enjoy Valentine's Day, and I'll catch your ass down the road.